Okay, hello and good day. I would say good morning or afternoon, but time zones and all of this. I'm here today with Lynsay, who you can see is with me. Hi. So Lynsay, the reason I want to bring Lynsay to you and introduce you to her world is because I know that you are all considering either hosting a podcast or 100% know that podcast guesting is the way that you might want to amplify yourself. And we were talking about this week we were talking about this week. Let's just say that we're talking about this week specifically. And here I am bringing you somebody who is going to help you to learn how to guest on podcasts, because that is a very good amplification strategy, is it not, Lynsay?
100%, yeah, absolutely it is. And any business owner, anybody can be a guest on a podcast. And it's a great way to find out about the world of podcasting if you're interested in having your own. It's a nice way to dip your toe in the water to see whether it's something you're going to enjoy.
So Lynsay is a podcast and business coach. She has been qualified for over 20 years. She mainly helps female entrepreneurs because she is pretty on mission to get our voices heard a bit more, so a little bit aligned with you guys. So and she lives in the northwest of England, but as you well know, where people live just doesn't prevent us from training with them. And she has a couple of daughters, just so you know that. She's married, she has a gazillion pets, which I believe she does count in and count out every day. What I obviously self-evident that I don't have a podcast myself, but you do know that I've guested on podcasts and radio, and it does, as I've said, lead to your ability to be on BBC radio as a guest and things like that too. But actually, podcasts are probably one of the most effective ways to become visible,
Yeah.
aren't they? But you that's what you do. You help entrepreneurs and brands to set up podcasts.
It's to start their podcast and then to use their podcast to grow their business. So I'm not really into helping people start hobby podcasts. Yep. It's about getting something that they can be strategic with to grow their business. That's the bit that excites me.
It's an actual asset.
Yeah, 100%.
An asset in the portfolio, and you focus on growing the business by answering the listener's needs.
Yes, 100%. That, yeah, definitely.
So it's that hitting that sweet spot that we're always aiming to be on.
Yeah, and it's not just about creating content on your podcast that is for the clients you have now. It's for your ideal listeners. So it might be people who aren't quite ready to work with you yet. Maybe they're 1 or 2 steps behind where they would be ready to work with you. So you can use your podcast in a really crafty way, actually, to build that relationship with them so that by the time they're ready to work with somebody, you're the obvious choice to work with.
It is that know, like, and trust. I mean, there are so much to having a podcast, but the purpose of today is to help us to figure out how to become guests on podcasts.
Yeah.
And what is it that you are going to be running? Is it a challenge or a group?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. I'm running a free challenge on the 1st of June for 5 days. And it's going to help you get everything ready so that you are ready to start your podcast. So it's all the prep work beforehand. Lots of people go out there and think, yeah, I'm just going to start a podcast, and they don't know what they don't know. So the 5-day challenge is there to help you get the foundation in place and start on solid ground. So if anybody wants to join that, I'll give you the link, Melanie, but it's lynsayand.com/challenge, and you can register. We start on the 1st, and it's going to be fantastic. It's always really fun.
Yeah. That I can hold my hand up to highly recommending doing that.
Thank you.
But today we're talking about guesting.
Yes, we're talking about guesting. We're going to talk about preparing to be a guest, what to do before during, and after being a guest on a podcast?
I'm going to get my notebook out, and I'm going to get my pen, and I'm going to be listening too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to you, and that's it. You're now in the hands as an expert.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen with you because I have some slides I'd like to share with you. And let's get going. So, growing your business as a podcast guest. My hair looks nothing like that anymore. I've gone more back to my natural colour and more red. That was in my blonde days last summer.
Your personality has not changed. No. It's still beautiful.
I've got many pictures with many colours hair going on. So yeah, that's still me, but last summer. So as you said, get your notebooks ready because there's going to be lots of juicy stuff for you to take down today. So in this session, we're going to cover how to pitch yourself to podcasts, lots of P's, what to do before a podcast interview and what to do during and after to really make sure that you're setting yourself apart from every other guest. So why am I here talking to you, apart from the fact that the lovely Melanie has said it's great for me to come along and talk to you and you're interested in this subject. I've been in the trenches and worked all this out as well. So I've been that person that I've just mentioned now who thought one day, I'm going to start a podcast, and tried to do it all on my own. And yeah, it was really difficult and stressful because I didn't know what I didn't know. So I've been there and worked it all out. So I know what works for you guys now. So I've been the host of 3 podcasts. My most current one is a Podcasting for Business show. And that's what I'm working on right now. So pitching yourselves to podcasts. The important thing is standing out. We don't want to be that boring email that comes into your inbox asking to be on a show in exactly the same way that everyone else does. We want to really stand out. So I'm going to show you how to do that. There are 5 steps to the perfect pitch. I like 5s. I work in 5s quite a lot. So the first thing you need to be doing is focusing on helping the host. That is the basis of all of this. They're the ones who are getting you in front of their audience. So it's all about supporting them and loving on them. You need to be sending them a very to the point email. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with Melanie a resource where it's a swipe file, really. It's exactly what to put in that email. And you can copy and paste it and tweak it for your own business and your own requirements.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really useful because people start with a blank page and think, oh, what do I actually say? It's like when you're pitching to press, where do I start?
Yeah, when we use the word query, it's like, what does that mean? What does it mean? That's brilliant. That's really useful. Thank you.
Yeah, I will send that over to you to share. And so sending that to the point email, you'll have the resource and listen to their show. You would be amazed at how often I get people asking to come on my show and asking to come on my client's show, and it's obvious they've never listened to it. It's obvious. And how
does that feel from your side?
Oh, it's just so disrespectful. It's an immediate delete. You just think, well, why am I bothering? Why should I bother replying if they've not put the time in to research my show?
That's the first thing that would make you stand out, is literally, make it clear you've actually listened.
Yeah, and talk about a recent episode or an episode from way back. Tell them why you've enjoyed it. And all of this is in the email that I'm going to send to you anyway. Right. A really great thing to do is in the subject title of your email, give them a title for the show. So rather than say podcast inquiry or guest inquiry, which is pretty much every email that we get, give them a title. So whatever it is that you're going to talk about on the show or would like to talk about, give them a title. It's pretty tough, and it takes quite a lot of work for hosts to come up with really engaging titles for every episode they produce. So if you go that one step further and help the host a little bit more, give them a title, it's much more compelling for them and gives them a reason to open up that email and want to read the note that you sent them. So to sum it up, make it super, super easy for them. Next, let's just say you have pitched and you've got a yes, you're going to go on the show. You've done really well, you've used the email and you've stood out. So before the interview, You need to listen again to that show. But what you're going to do this time is you're going to have a little bit more of a deeper listen. What you're looking for this time are the nuances of the show. So what is the structure? Does the host have a signature question that they ask every host? Lots of hosts have things like a quick fire round at the end of the interview where there might be 3 or 5 questions that everybody has to answer. So make sure you know those nuances. Make sure you know the style. Make sure you know whether the host swears on their podcast, because you don't want to rock up and start swearing when it's really not that sort of place. So listen and get more prepared with how you're going to show up on that interview. Now, what I am going to say about that is don't be anybody else but yourself. If you are very sweary, don't go on a podcast where you absolutely can't swear and you know you will, and you'll drop the F-bomb by mistake. So just don't do that.
Well, that's smart cross branding, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because why on earth would you go onto a podcast where you have to limit yourself? You have to be yourself. Yeah. And the host will only have you on there anyway if they think you're right for the show. So if you are booked, you are pretty confident there that you're in the right place, but just make sure, just do another check, listen again. So be prepared. Now, what do I mean by be prepared? This is turning up, don't have a script. Please don't have a script. It sounds really robotic. People can hear when you're reading from a script as well. I don't know whether you think that as well, Melanie, but I can always tell when someone's reading.
Yeah, we did this, we learned how to do speed or sight reading back in drama school, and it's a really, really, really taxing skill.
Yeah.
It's something that you have to really work at to make it
Yeah.
sound great. So
yeah.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah, absolutely don't do it. So what I do when I go on to a podcast is I'll have just a piece of paper with some bullet points written down with the key things that I absolutely want to get across in that podcast, so that I can refer to it, but I'm not reading. Because the best interviews, quite frankly, are the ones where you don't know all the questions you're going to get asked. You don't know every single detail about what is going to be asked of you. You want it to be conversational and off the cuff, but you also know that that host wants to give value to their listeners. So make sure you've got some key points that the listeners can go away with an action. So have those written out. And quite often, when somebody comes onto the show and at the end of it, they'll say, so where can people come and find you if they want to find out more about you? In that moment, you might just completely forget your URLs and where you've got to go and where to send them. So again, just give them one place to go. Like I did at the start, I gave you one URL. That's where you need to go. Don't baffle them with, well, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me here, there, and everywhere. People will just switch off. So give them one place to go and have that written down and know what it is. And just be prepared with that. So have everything in front of you. Test your microphone. I'll come on to microphone in a second with equipment, but test your microphone. Make sure that you're in a quiet area and that you can just carry on with the interview and not be interrupted. So with the equipment, I strongly suggest if you are going to be a guest on a podcast that you invest in some equipment, and that is a microphone. You are going to set yourself apart from 90% of the guests that go onto podcasts, because what you're doing is you're showing that host that you're serious about the quality of the sound that you're going to produce for that show.
And the sound is actually the key piece.
Everything, yeah. It's not like a video.
Yeah.
You can't rely on the moving pictures. It's all about the audio. So if you turn up and you've just got a set of iPhone headphones or none at all, then you're showing that host that you're really not that serious about it. And this is your brand. You're on there talking about you and your brand and what you stand for and your message, and you're not going to be taken seriously if the host sounds fantastic and then your quality's all hissy and there's background noise and there's all sorts going on. So just make sure that you've got the right equipment. As a basis, it's a microphone. If you can invest a little bit more, I would have a microphone and a good set of headphones as well. So interruptions. Now, we're all at home right now, so this is tough. And as I've said, I've got a lot of pets at home. I've also got 2 teenage daughters, and I've got a husband who constantly knocks on my office door. It's difficult, I get it, but do what you can to avoid those interruptions. So this means letting your family know you're going to be on a call, you can't be interrupted. It's about turning your phone off, turning off your notifications on your laptop, and shutting the door. Closing the window, do what you can to be as quiet as possible. It does make a big difference. When I say this though, hosts do understand that things happen. I've had on several occasions someone knock on the door, delivering something for my daughter right in the middle of an interview, and I've had to say, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to just go and answer the door, or else the dog's going to bark and it's just going to descend into chaos. And that's okay.
And I think that the thing about that is then, you know, hone your skills about handling interruption.
Yes,
if you
definitely.
fall apart, then that's it. But if you can somehow take the control of the interruption, so it's that's it.
Definitely agree with that. But I think the other thing to bear in mind with interruptions and podcasts is it's the majority of the time a podcast interview isn't live. It's not live. It's going to be recorded, so therefore everything is editable. And most hosts will know if you're new to guesting. You can even tell them, just say, this is my first interview. That's absolutely fine. The host will probably be a little bit kinder to you if they know that. They're nice people. So it's okay if you fluff your words, you stutter, you say the wrong thing. It's okay to say, actually, can I just answer that question again, because I've just gone down a rabbit hole that I didn't want to. And it's fine, and it can be edited out. So make sure that you can be as interruption free as possible. And one other quick tip here in the preparing before we talk about relaxing is that a lot of podcasters now are starting to video record interviews as well, because a lot of podcasts are going onto YouTube too. So make sure you know in advance whether you're going to have your camera on. And if you are, get your lippy on, maybe brush your hair, maybe change out of your pajamas, and just be comfortable being on camera, okay? If you're not comfortable being on camera, I would say get over it.
Yeah, don't choose those podcasts. But I like yours, get a grip.
Yeah, I couldn't say that any other way. Just do it anyway. And then the final one for getting ready is relax. And it seems very obvious, but it's very easy to get nervous and start panicking about it. And what happens then is you start sounding like a robot. You start sounding like somebody completely different. So relax and know that the host has invited you onto that show because of you, because of what you brought to that pitch and the conversation you've most likely had. So just relax and be yourself, okay? Take a deep breath, have some water with you. Water, incidentally, just before you record helps stop those mouth smacking noises that you get, which are an irritation to edit out of a podcast. So if you can have some water beforehand, that's great. Bonus tip, I'm all about the bonus. Whenever I go onto a podcast, I will create this very, very simple landing page. You can either do this on something like Lead Pages or on your website as like a hidden page. And this is a template. And I will literally, every time I go onto a show, I will create a new duplicate of this page and I'll just change the words. And what will happen is I can tell the host, yeah, I've got a freebie for your listeners. They can go to whatever the URL is. And when they land there, they see this lovely welcome. It's specific for them. And it's probably only taken you probably 10 minutes to tweak the wording.
So so whatever podcast you've been on,
yeah,
they arrive and it's like Lynsay's brilliant podcast.
Yeah,
welcome.
Exactly that.
Right.
And so it'll say, you could say something like, this is a really simple one, but you could say, thanks so much for listening to the episode that I was on with Women Developing Brilliance. Really enjoyed the interview. Here's the freebie that we talked about in the episode. Download it here. And that way you're just setting yourself apart. The majority of people don't do this.
No.
Yeah.
And actually what happens is that when somebody lands on this, they're like, oh, I'm in the right place.
100%, yeah. They're in the right place.
that's what I came for, this is it. And you've
Yes.
now established again the trust.
Yes.
Oh, that's
And
great.
the host is much more likely to think, right, great big gold star here for this guest. I'm going to have her back on again because she's so professional. She helped my listeners. She wanted to give them more. And obviously, you're building your list at the same time. And this is there forever. It's just a hidden page on your website that it isn't in the bar at the top of your website. It's just hidden away, and only people who've listened to that episode can access that. And it's just there forever. So this is long-term content that is going to keep your list growing every time when people find this podcast. So that's a bonus tip for you.
I love that one.
Good. And you don't have to do that if you're very new in business and this is and you're thinking, oh my goodness, how do I even set up that? Just bear it in mind for the future.
Yeah.
So during the interview, this is really important. Be on time. So obvious, but again, it happens. People are late.
Check the time zones.
Absolutely, check the time zone. Yeah, that has happened many times.
Yeah,
and
British Standard Time, you know, it's those summertime moves as well.
Yeah, they often confuse people.
Yeah.
So be on time. Make sure you're there. Test your equipment beforehand.
That's what I did before we spoke.
Yeah, exactly. And when you turn up on time, you're showing you're serious, you're showing you want to be professional, and it's just the right thing to do. People aren't going to have you back. Quite often what happens is hosts will batch their content and they will batch their interviews. So they might have put aside a day for guest interviews that month. And if you're late, you're making everyone else late after them as well, which they're just going to keep thinking, I'm behind all day because of that person who turned up late this morning.
Yeah.
So just be on time. Be
Yeah,
you.
you must realise that maybe somebody's batching.
Yes.
But also, even if they're not, you're encroaching on, say, coaching time or whatever else.
On their day.
Yeah.
Even if they're doing nothing afterwards, you're still encroaching on their time. So the next tip is just be you. This is again about remembering the host has got you on there for a reason. So just be you. The ums and the ers, we all do them. We all have these little sounds that we make. I say so a lot. And I'm really conscious of it. So I try a lot to not say it while I'm recording, but I do. I still say it. But whatever they might be, so's, whatever the word is that you think you say, if you know, teenagers with the like, it drives me insane. Those words, try to limit them as much as possible. I know that you probably won't not say them at all, but just limit them, just to make sure the host has a bit of an easier time editing that episode. They won't remove all of them, but if you do it excessively, it's a pain to have to edit them all out. Don't be a robot. Don't stand there with your piece of paper, monotone, and speak from a script. Please don't do that because it just sounds boring. And just know that the interview will go off on a tangent. Just imagine that you're talking to a friend, with having a coffee, chatting to a friend about whatever you're talking about, your business, your story, something that's coming up, how you got through a situation. Just talk from the heart, because that's what people are going to resonate with. Be prepared, know what message you want to get across, but just talk from the heart, and it's just so much nicer for people to listen to.
I always say we need to be able to talk about ourselves as easily as a conversation in a coffee shop.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. Yeah. And try to be fairly succinct with your answers. And if the host wants more, they will ask, they will probe. So they'll come back with another question. So try to be succinct as much as you can, but don't be robotic. Be camera ready. Even if you've asked the host beforehand. I've had situations where I've asked the host beforehand, is this going to be video or is it just voice? And I've turned up, they've said it's going to be voice, and then they're there in full makeup, lights, camera, action, and I'm not ready for that. So just be ready just in case is my tip there, because quite often a host will change their mind last minute.
or the equipment's changed, they've only got Zoom to record on, which happens to also have video.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. So just be camera ready, brush your hair, put some lipstick on, and just be comfortable. And if you look good and you feel good, you're going to come across really well on the interview as well. So after the interview, to me, this is probably more important than the actual interview. Quite often guests will go on and they'll think, phew, I got through that, it's done, on to the next one. But there's so much more that you can leverage from that interview. So the first thing is be grateful, say thank you, send a card, do whatever you need to do, share it on social media, be very grateful because the host has allowed you to come in front of all of their wonderful audience, like you guys now, and get you in front of another set of people for free. You would have had to pay to get in front of another audience ordinarily. And this is what people don't realize. Being a guest on a podcast is a complete game changer. You can spend less on marketing. If you're going around the circuit, going on lots of different podcasts, you're growing your audience organically. So if marketing budgets have been cut, if you don't have a lot to spend on marketing, this is a really simple way to get out there. So be grateful to your host because she's done all that for you, or he's done all that for you. Promote the episode. What will happen on the day that the podcast goes live, you'll get a link, and it's either a link to their website or it will be a link to Apple Podcasts, whatever they give you. Literally share it everywhere and then share it some more. You need to be really promoting that episode and letting everybody know that you've been on this show and how fantastic it is. So do that over the space of a week. Don't just share it once.
And I found that you can actually share it again another couple of months.
Oh, goodness, yeah, definitely.
Evergreen content in your social media feed.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, not everybody sees every single post you put out there anyway, do they? So just promote it quite a lot that week. And then what I do and what I tell my students to do is a couple of weeks after the episode is gone live, go back, message the host, contact them on the phone, whatever it is, and ask them, how did it go? How did the episode go? Did you get a lot of downloads? Have you had any questions? And then say, I've really enjoyed working with you on the podcast. Let's have a coffee and see how we can work together again. And this is how you build those relationships.
I mean, I have to say, I'm guilty of not doing that piece, and it tends to be just life moves very fast.
Yeah.
But if this becomes your main amplification strategy, that is what we just do.
Yeah, it sets you apart. And this is all about what I said right at the beginning, stand out. Yeah. Just stand out. Be the one that everybody wants on their show. So ask for that collaboration. Ask how you can work together again. Clearly, if you've not enjoyed the experience, you're not going to do this step. But if you have, and you want more of this, and you want to work with the audience again, then ask. And then the next thing I would ask is for a referral. So a lot of hosts know other podcasters. So you could say, you know, I really enjoyed it. I'm trying to get onto more podcasts right now. Who do you recommend that I would be a good fit for? And then ask for the referral. Ask for them to introduce you.
That is a top tip.
Yeah, and as icky as you might feel doing that, again, just get over it, because this is the way you're going to get out there.
It's much easier than a cold call.
Oh my goodness, yeah, definitely.
You've already spoken, you already have a relationship with that person. You're just asking a person then, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And what you can do is, once that person's introduced you, you will have a conversation on your own, and you can share the link from the episode you've just been on with their friend and say, this is the interview I just did with your friend. I'd love to talk about something similar. Let's have a chat about how we could work together.
Love it, love it.
And then right at the end, it's go back to the beginning and start the entire process again. So what I suggest to people is to have almost like a vision board, a dream list of the podcasts that you want to be on. We've all got our top ones. When we think about this, we know who would be ideal for you to be a guest on. And then number one. So have a list of, say, 20. I think I say on the next slide 10, but I'm going to say 20. I'm going to push you because I know you can do it. So make a list of 20 podcasts that you would love to be on. Start at number 20 and work your way up. And Melanie and I were just talking about this before we started recording, that You know, this is about, I think you said you called it the B list circuit, didn't you?
B tour. The B tour is
The
about.
B tour, which I love that. And it's almost like, yeah, obviously the podcast at number 20 you want to be on, but it's not half as big as the one that you really, really want to be on. So you're making your way up. And Melanie was saying before, you get asked random questions on these smaller shows. And by the time you get to number 1 or even number 5, you're just cooking on gas. You know exactly what to expect. You're confident, you're in flow, and you're just much more expert at being a guest on a podcast. So make that list. The first thing to do to make that list is to actually research the shows you want to be on. The best way to do that is to go onto Apple Podcasts. And if you're not an Apple user, you can go to Spotify and just do a keyword search for your particular industry. So let's say you're a nutritionist and you love talking about the paleo diet, very niche. You might type in the word paleo and have a look at the podcasts that come up. Now, you don't want to be going on shows that are exactly the same message that you have. You want to be pitching to shows that you can complement their message. So you don't want to be in competition with the host, but you want to add to what the host is already talking about. So you might then pitch health and well-being podcasts and go on and talk about the benefits of the paleo diet, as an example.
Did you see me notifying all that, writing this all down?
Good. Well, you'll have all this sent to you, so don't worry. And so do that research. Do the research. Who do you want to be on? Make that top list of 20. And then listen to some of their episodes before you go ahead and pitch.
I actually didn't know you could search Apple podcasts for...
On the desktop, yeah, not on the app. The app, you can't really do much.
That's very cool.
On the desktop, you can. So that's everything. I'm going to send over these slides for you, Melanie, for your audience. I'm going to send over the email that we talked about. And if anybody wants to join the challenge, it's there, lynsayand.com/challenge. I'd love to help you. We talk about guesting in the challenge as well, but this is more focused on if you're thinking about getting your podcast started this year. So I will come back to you.
Well, that's a double whammy of good, really, because, you know, I know that some of us are thinking about having a podcast as one of our major assets. Plus, I'm always saying that the podcast avenue is a amplification strategy that's just, it's so available.
Yeah.
Now so my 3 takeaways from God, there were so many things, so many. So in the first bit, it would be like, make it easy.
Yeah.
Make it easy for them. And there was something in there about the nuances, you know, listen to the show and figure out what one of their key pieces is and make sure you're prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of making it easy for them, right? Because you're already there. So my second one is the landing page for your freebie.
Yeah.
That's just genius.
Yeah.
Even, you know, somebody could make a graphic like that really easy in places like Canva or whatever. And as you said,
that's all I use, Canva, and then just duplicate the page for each show.
Just brilliant. But the last one was the whole follow-up sequence was just brilliant tips if this is going to be your main amplification strategy. But the searching on Apple, that's new information for me for your niche. And I love the whole idea of the complement shows, like one step to the side of your exact niche so that there's a complement in it. Well, those are my 3 main takeaways. Is there one I've missed that you know 100% is super effective?
I think, you know, none of any of what we're talking about here is going to happen unless you just go and do it. You just have to start small.
Start with those 20.
Yeah, start and know that it's not going to be amazing the first time. It really won't, but your style will evolve and you'll get better and you'll get more comfortable. But you just have to take that first step and do it. And to do that, I mean, I get a lot of people saying to me, oh, I just hate the sound of my own voice. Well, don't listen to it then. Don't listen to it. But it's not about you. Well, it's about the people you're helping.
Sorry. There is that scientific fact that we don't hear our voice the same way other people do.
Yeah. I'm hoping so.
Yeah. That's what the rest of us are telling ourselves.
So every voice is for podcasting. Every location has a slightly different accent. It's all good. It's all good. You don't have to speak in the Queen's English to have a podcast.
I mean,
you don't. You can have any accent and still have an amazing podcast. People worry about it. People do worry.
So glad, because obviously all of my Europeans will be like, that's good news. And everybody in America across their 5 time zones will be like, cool, we'll have our accents then. There was so much in there, and what I really, really value is your time today coming on to, essentially give people completely free coaching on how to amplify.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy to. As you said right at the start, I am on a complete mission to get more women into this. If you look on the Apple charts, the majority of those top podcasts are men, and not only are they men, they are white middle-class men. And we want a really lovely variation and diversity. And I've nothing against men. I'm married to one. But we want our voices heard. And it's an amazing way to do it.
It's back to that thing of like, if we don't hear women's stories out there, we won't feel ours are valid.
Exactly that, yeah.
Podcasting is something we can do from home. In the current place that we're actually sitting, watching and listening to Zooms probably, and getting our own coaching from.
Yes.
And it's great for reach, because there's no barrier to a podcast.
Yeah, 100%. It's very low barrier of entry. People can listen for free just using their smartphone. So you can reach so many people very quickly, because people tune in intentionally to listen to a podcast. It's not like the mindless scroll on YouTube or social media. They tune in intentionally.
But the other thing is, I think that might be my notifications. Do you know what I mean? About switch off notifications? I've been like, damn it, there's a new app somewhere that I haven't switched off. So anyway.
I think mine has as well, to be fair.
It's good to have an example of somebody failing to do the right thing. A little bit. But there's the thing about the podcasts is that people are not just intentionally tuning in and appreciate the trance, is that people can actually listen to a podcast while doing something else.
Yeah.
And whilst everybody's always distracted, if somebody is distracted by their Facebook or Messenger feed or something, that really takes their attention away.
Yeah.
But podcasts are something people are running with. They're not necessarily on their commute, but they are listening.
Everywhere you can imagine. And they're up right now as well. Since this whole pandemic, podcast listenership is up over 22%. Yeah,
the ones being listened to on commute, not so much.
No, but the ones that are up, overall they're up 22%. But the ones that are most up at the moment are podcasts about entrepreneurship, funnily enough, podcasts about health and well-being, and comedy podcasts.
Excellent.
So they're all up.
Well, all I can say is thank you so much for coming on and giving us this. But I heartily recommend that everybody joins up to the challenge as well. Not just if you were thinking of putting a podcast into your asset portfolio, but just to see if you should be thinking of putting a podcast into your asset portfolio, because you should be thinking of putting a podcast into your asset portfolio. And I think I'm probably going to be up for the challenge. I've been in your world for a couple of years, and it's always been like, not quite the right time, not quite the right time. And sometimes it is about timing, but there's nothing to be gained by not taking in the information, not being part of the challenge, not learning about it.
Yeah, exactly. You've got nothing to lose. So thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. I could talk about it all day. So I'm really grateful of you having me to talk to your audience. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. So you are going to send me stuff, and we're going to put links out. We're going to do that whole thing. So, but if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to ask them, but also go directly to Lynsay and ask her as well. Because now you've been introduced, you're practically friends.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking forward to getting to know lots of you, definitely. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.